time for another Dice Tower review with Tim Jennette.
Hey everyone, this is Tim Jennette, the Metal Meeple, and in this video we're going to take a look at Deus. It's designed by Sebastian Desjardins from Pearl Games in 2014, which is released under Asmodee, I believe, in the States. It's for 2 to 4 players, takes about 60 minutes, and this is a really hard game to describe without showing you, but essentially it's kind of like an empire building game where you're trying to build your empire, put all these different buildings out on the map, conquer these barbarian camps, build these temples. You have these pretty cool little powers that you can honor the gods with and get all these rewards. It's pretty cool sounding. It's a very abstract strategy, I guess, but the board and everything looks pretty cool. I know it's gotten some flack on how it looks, but anyway, more on that when we actually show you how to play the game, and then we'll come back and I'll tell you what I think. So here we have a basic setup of Deus for a 2-player game. The reason I chose 2 is just because it takes up less space, but basically, depending on the number of players you have, 2, 3, or 4, you're going to have these tiles here. Let me show you some of those tiles. There's extra ones. So on a 2-player game, you got these 4. In a 3-player game, you have 6 of these tiles, and then in a 4-player game, you're going to use them all. They're double-sided. Each tile has essentially the exact same amount of each region, just in a different layout. They're going to have barbarian camps and fields and forests and swamps, your oceans, and the mountains. Anyway, so different little layouts. You can choose how you want. There is a variant to the game where you can kind of place this how you want, but this is the standard 2-player game. You're going to generate a supply of tokens, 10 of each of these. For a 2-player game, you get more for 3 and all of them for 4 players. You've got wood tokens, you have stone tokens, which are the gray, you have wheat, which are the yellow, and you have clay, which are the red. There's these victory point tokens. You just kind of make a pool of these off to the side. When you gather, or when you gain them, you put them face down. Barbarian camps on each one of these tiles. The only stipulation is 2 barbarian camps can't touch each other when you're setting this up, otherwise you can set it up how you want. For each region adjacent to a barbarian camp, you're going to put points. So this has 4, you're going to put 4 here, while this has 6, and this has 3, and this has 3. And then you got money in different denominations, so 1, 5, and 10 you just put off to the side. Each player starts with $5, 5 money. 1 of each resource from the general pool after you've generated. The last thing is you also put the temples off to the side based on the number of players. 4 for a 2-player, 6 for a 3-player, and all 7 for a 4-player game. And each player is going to receive 5 cards from this giant deck of cards. Somebody's going to receive this starting player card, or it means they're the first player. They keep this the whole game, but it's just to remind you. You get 5 of these cards. We'll put these down for a second. And you receive an entire bag of cool wooden pieces. So with orange player, let's take some of these. You got different buildings here. You've got the military buildings and your scientific buildings and production. So you got 5 different buildings essentially to go on top of your player board. This player board bifolds, and you're going to place 2 of each of those on the matching thing. So your boats, you're going to have 2 of them that you'll place here. Obviously this would be on the ground, so it'd be much easier, but you're going to have 2 there, 2 of the production, 2 of the scientific, etc., etc. And then you have a space for the temple, which we'll get into in a minute. And essentially you're going to keep playing around until one of 2 things happen. Either all the temples have been placed into play, or all these barbarian camps have been conquered and all the points taken off of them. When that happens, you finish out the current round, and then you play one final round, and then at the end of that, whoever has the most points is the winner. You only really have 2 options on your turn. You can either play one of these cards, pay the cost, and put one of your buildings into play, or you can discard as many cards as you want from your hand and put one on top and activate a special power. So let's take a look at building one of these first. Like I said, you start with 5 gold and some resources. Say you wanted to build this ship here. It costs you 3 gold, 1 wood. This would cost you 1 of each. It's a temple. 1 wood, you've got some stone and wheat, and some gold. But you choose what you want to build, and say you build this, you pay the resources to the bank, and then from your player board, you're going to remove one of the 2 tokens that you started with. The reason is because you have to discard to get more of these tokens, or meeples or whatever, so you take one of these off the board and you place it somewhere on the board. Now, the first place you place must be on an edge of the board, so you could place over here on this ocean. Boats can only go in the ocean, everything else can pretty much go anywhere, except for nothing can ever be on top of the barbarian camps, even when they're conquered. Anyway, so you start off in the ocean over here. From then on, when you place, you're going to be placing tokens or meeples or whatever next to somewhere you already control. If you want to move away from that, by the way, when you place there, you can never place within 2 spaces of an enemy for your initial placement. So if you placed here, your enemy could not take up any one of these spaces. They could place over here if they wanted to. After that, though, you can kind of converge and block each other off and stuff like that. Similar to Settlers of Catan, where you're building a line and trying to gather as much space as you can. However, anybody at any point can spend 3 victory points to the bank to place their token anywhere on the board. So they could place, if they wanted to kind of get in there, they could spend 3 and place, if they were building over here, they can spend 3 to place one of their things next over here. When you do this, you still have to do the same rules, as in you can't be 2 away, so he couldn't, if that's where he started, green couldn't spend 3 victory points to place his character here. He has to place on the edge, but he also has to abide by the rules where you can't be within 2 spaces of another player during that placement. So, anyway, let's just say he placed there. That is to play a card. Once you've played a card, you're going to place it on your player board above the player board. So you're going to place it right here, and it's going to live there for the rest of the game. It's also going to have a special ability. This one you can sell up to 2 lots of 1 stone and 1 wheat, and you're going to earn 3 victory points. You can do that twice. It also has a picture, basically a symbolic thing where it's the same thing. So you got words and you got pictures, whichever one you want to use, but you're going to place this above your board right here, and as you get them played out, you're going to put them above here. So the orange player wanted to play this blue card on his turn. That's his action. So he's going to pay the cost. He's going to place this face up right here, take one of the available tokens that's on his player board and place it on the table. So he's going to choose to place it here. He's going to activate its ability, and then that's pretty much going to be his turn. The next turn, you never draw cards. There's actions to where it'll allow you to draw cards, but we'll come back to that. So his next turn, say he wanted to play this, he pays his abilities, or his cost. He can put one of these out on the board, which everything here is a building, even though these are people. Some of these cards will allow you to move your armies to different regions and hop around, but these are what you're going to use to take over these barbarian camps and gain their experience. After you play your card, it's going to be your opponent's turn. The turns go pretty quick, but eventually you're going to either run out of cards or want to use them for something else. So let's say you have these 3 cards left. The bottom of your board is going to show you a special ability that you can use for each color. And what I mean by that is you're gonna make a tribute to the gods. Essentially, you're going to discard as many cards as you want from your hand and put 1 color on top. So you only show your opponents, I'm discarding 3, but the top is green, meaning that you're going to activate the god ability that's green. Here's a player board. So if you tribute with blue on top, you're going to get 2 gold for every card that you discarded. In that case, you discarded 3 cards, and let's say the top card, instead of being green, was blue, you're going to get 6 gold. On top of that, you're going to get to add 1 more of these ships to your player board. And then finally, you'll draw up to 5 cards. If you discard 3 or 4 cards or whatever, and you did green on top, you're going to get whatever resource you want per card you discard. You're also going to get to put one of the production buildings back on here. You also always go back up to 5. Yellow's a little different. You go up to 5 first, you gain a yellow building, and you get an extra card for every card that you discarded. So if you discarded 5 cards, then with yellow on top, then you're going to draw up to 5, and then you're going to draw 1 per card you discarded, so you're going to have a hand of 10 cards at that point. For orange, if you discard one card, you get 1 victory point. Anything above 1 card, you get 2 victory points, plus you get 1 building back and you go up to 5. And finally, your military. If you discard a military card on top and say you did 4 cards, you get 4 buildings of whatever choice you want. So you can do 1, 2, 3, 4. You get up to 5 cards. Finally, you have temple cards, which are these purple cards. Once you build a temple, if you build a temple out here, it's going to slot into this spot right here, basically in this slot right here, and it's going to allow you to put one of these temples in play in a space you already have a building. Anytime you build one of these buildings, you can place them in a space that you already have a building if you would like, because there are some special cards that'll say if you have multiple buildings in a space, you get a bonus or whatever. But more on that in a minute. The other thing that the temples can be used as is a wild card. So if you look at your player board, if you discard a purple, you can choose any of the 5 colors and perform its ability. So while they're powerful and they give you a ton of experience, or VPs at the end of the game, you also may want to use them in case, say for instance, you need to activate yellow's ability to draw more cards, or you need more resources but you don't have a green, you can use these purples in their place. Another thing on the temples is the first one's free, but past that you have to have at least 1 card of every other color. So if you had blue, green, yellow, brown, and red, 1, that means you can build a second temple. If you have 2 of each of these cards, you can build a third temple, etc., etc. That's pretty much the game. On your turn, you either play a card face up in your tableau, activate its ability, pay its costs, or you discard a ton of cards to gain either resources or gold or something down here to further your cause. If you ever run out of cards, you always draw back up to 5 no matter what, but otherwise you don't draw cards other than the yellow action. And after all the temples have been placed, or after all these victory points have been claimed, which, by the way, let me explain that because I must have missed this, but say we're fighting over this barbarian camp here. If green had built something here, say they had started off over here and people just kind of wrapped around, when a barbarian camp is fully surrounded by player pieces, every region around it has 1 player piece at least, this barbarian camp will be claimed, as long as one of those is a military unit. Now, if no one has a military unit, it waits until somebody places one and then immediately score it. But in this case, say orange had it like this, and they place this final piece here, completing a circle around it, they're going to gain this because they're the only person with a military. If green happened to complete it, say this was the last piece, green puts his down, what that's going to do is split the cost, or split the points, so each player is going to receive 2 of these. So you just make change, each player gets 2 of these barbarian victory points here, and they put them face down in their scoring area along with any victory points they've gathered through the game. Anyway, once all these barbarian camps have been claimed, or all 4 of these temples have been placed, the game will continue, like I said, for that final round, or for the rest of that round and that final round, and at the end of the final round, whoever has the most points will be the winner. There you are, that's Deus. This is a pretty cool game. I didn't think I would like it as much as I did, but as we played it, well, first off, let me start with the first time we played it. First time I played it, I felt like somebody just threw a manual of strategy in my face and said, here you go, because I was like, what do I do? There's just so many options. The thing I quickly realized is that you're not going to use all the cards in your hand, and I think that's a very big stepping stone for some people to get into the strategy of this. You have this hand of cards, but you essentially want to and obviously I'm not the best Deus player, but from my observations, you want to play 1 card, and then the next turn, or maybe another card, and then discard the rest. Maybe keep one that's really good, or the one that you want to discard on top, and then play one that you can just to get some stuff out on the board. I don't know, I've played it quite a bit, and it just seems like the strategy just keeps opening up. It's pretty cool. With 2 players, it's even crazier, because there's a lot more, I don't know, with 3 and 4 players, there's a lot of stuff that just happens, and you really don't have a lot of control over it, because players will just swoop in and grab areas and things like that. With the 2 players, it's a little bit more strategic, a little bit more tactical, and I think that it's also less forgiving, because in a 2-player game, you can literally make a mistake that's probably going to cause you to spiral into oblivion. I mean, as far as I can tell, I've played it a few times where if you start too close to the opponent and you try to take over barbarian camps, they're just going to be like, I put the last guy down. I put the last guy down. And it's like, wow. So, I don't know. I start off and across the map most of the time and kind of weave into each other and try to take over as much area as you can to force them to spend victory points to place across the board. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's very unique. I mean, it for some reason it gives, and I guess other people have said this too, it gives you this Settlers of Catan feeling. Maybe it's like the next step if you want to show somebody, well, probably not, but if you want to show somebody who loves Settlers of Catan a very in-depth game. It's not a hard game because really you only have 2 actions during your turn. There's just a ton of strategy. So anyway, keep that in mind, but definitely try it out. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at timjennette@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Twitter below. And until next time, keep on rocking, rolling dice.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.